I'm just up here for a minute to welcome you to the Center for the Study of Southern Culture. My name is Katie McKee, and I'm the director of this program. The center has been here for almost 50 years. It will turn 50 in 2027. And throughout that time, it has been our commitment to tell the story of a multiple, plural South. We are delighted that you are here with us tonight. We want you to continue to go have food because there is lots of it. The food is from Lola's Homestead in Guntown, Mississippi. When there is more in the kitchen. So please get up, go get more, come back, help yourselves. I'm going to hand it over now to Stephen Fafulas and the SEC Consortium, who has been here today. We are really pleased to have you, and thank you for thinking of us, Stephen, as a partner in this venture.
Bienvenidos. Gracias por venir. Y continuemos ahora con las conversaciones que ya tuvimos durante todo el día. Okay, what are we doing here? First, I'm still trying to figure out, how do you say hotty toddy in Spanish? I mean, all day I'm just asking around, okay? Anyway, that's a side note. I'm very grateful to be here. I'm honored. We've said this morning. We had the former chancellor of the University of Mississippi drive up here from Hazelhurst, Mississippi. He's not Latino. He doesn't speak Spanish, but he understands the importance of multilingualism, what we're doing here. The university is behind these kinds of initiatives. The Center for the Study of Southern Culture, I say it different every time, but that time was good. They're behind this, okay? People are behind this, Latinos, non-Latinos. Little by little, I tried this 2-3 years ago. Now I have partners, more people are in person. Last time we did it, it was mostly Zoom, the SEC Spanish Consortium. There's momentum. So, you know, I'm not a Southerner and I'm not a Latino. This morning I told the whole story. I'm not going to tell it again. But what I'm going to say is this. The current generation of Latinos, especially in the U.S., they're young. They speak English better than Spanish, mostly. And they are, in our case, Mississippians. They're part of the fabric of the South. They're part of our communities. So what does this look like in my daily life? For example, over the past couple of years, I drive my son to school, I pick him up, Bramlett Elementary, Della Davidson. I often see Officer Diaz. I waved to him. I went over recently, spoke to him, told him about this event. He told me he was born in Tallahassee, Florida. His parents are from Central America. He's a police officer here, okay? Very common theme, especially for the Mississippi Latinos, to come from other local southern places, kind of make their way here. But now their children are born here. They're showing up. I showed a graphic this morning. Every single year, at every single, if somebody finds an error in what I'm saying, let me know. It could be wrong. But what I saw was in every single year at every single SEC university for the last 20 years, I have the institutional data, the undergraduate Latino enrollment as a percentage of the overall undergraduate enrollment went up at every single SEC school. So this is real change that's happening now. And that's what we're here to talk about. That's what we're here to showcase. Last year, I had the opportunity to teach and design a course on experiential learning, Latinos in Mississippi. We went as part of the group to a church in Pontotoc, 100, 200 Latinos easily, an Ash Wednesday service entirely in Spanish, okay? I went back this year. I have John Rayer here. We're working on a documentary. I'll tell you about that later. We went back again on a Sunday to see Father Murphy. Father Murphy is from Ithaca, New York. I'm from New Jersey. He's from New York. I did not expect the service to be in Spanish. The entire service was in Spanish, okay? His congregation, I don't know that it's larger with Latinos or Spanish speakers than non-Latinos, but maybe it's 50% at this point. So this is a father from the Northeast who's learning Spanish, conducting his services in Spanish to meet the needs of the local community. Next week, one of my colleagues, I don't see her, will be going over to meet with the director of the Willie Price Lab School to talk about bilingual education, dual language immersion, something else that I'm interested in, something else that many of us are interested in, right? The story I told this morning, I'm not going to tell it, I guess, completely, but I guess I don't keep my word. I'll tell a little bit. I grew up, my father was an immigrant from Greece, has a very strong foreign accent. I know what that feels like, to have my friends over with, my dad who's not that easy to understand. I learned I'm a heritage speaker of Greek. Most of the people we're talking about today, heritage speakers of Spanish. I'm a heritage speaker of Greek. I learned Greek again as an adult, lived with my family in Greece. That was my host family. My blood relatives were my host family while I went to school to learn Greek, okay? The point I'm making is that's the 3 generation, that's kind of la regla que tenemos en los Estados Unidos. The families come, by the 2nd or 3rd generation, the children, they learn, they shift to English. It happened with my son too. They shift to English. And then later when they get back into high school, they get back into the university, we say, oh, you should learn Spanish. Eso es bueno para tu futuro. So then they relearn Spanish. Okay, it's a very common story. We don't have to repeat that story, right? There's different opportunities. There's different models. For example, dual language immersion. So yes, Latino communities in Mississippi are changing, and perhaps the invitation to all of us is this: let's grow and change together, okay? Now, transitioning to the current event, again, thank you to Katie, thank you to Afton, to Simone. Having partners makes all of this so much easier, okay? Like so much easier, and they know what they're doing, so I'm very grateful for their help, and I'm learning in the process. Okay, we have 3 representative speakers who are going to introduce the exhibition that's going to be here for at least a month, correct? So come back with your students, come back with your family, circle around the observatory, take a look at the artwork on display. They're here to introduce and talk about their experience with their exhibition documentary called Nuestro Mississippi. So we're going to hear about artwork, activism, and then a little bit of, again, continuing work that's happening right now with oral archives from a perspective, an academic perspective. So I'll start here in order. We have Lorena Quiroz. No sé si Lorena ahora quiere acercarse o no, pero bueno. Tenemos Lorena Quiroz. Her journey began in Queens, New York. Born to Ecuadorian parents who valued cultural heritage and community, growing up amidst diverse cultures sparked her passion for advocacy and social justice. She later moved to the Mississippi Delta, where she grew deep roots and a commitment to marginalized communities. As an Ecuadorian American, Lorena embraces her heritage while empowering others. In Mississippi, she raises her 3 daughters with values of resilience and community involvement. As the executive director of the Immigrant Alliance for Justice and Equity, IAJE, Lorena employs innovative strategies, amplifying unheard voices and fostering recognition and respect for all. The many rich experiences and stories from her lived experiences inform her resilience, innovation, and dedication required for the strong leadership in IAJE's fight for social justice. Hector, I don't know if we pronounce the H right, Hector Boldo, is a multidisciplinary artist born in Mexico City whose work bridges cultural heritage and contemporary experience. Drawing deeply from the syncretism of indigenous and Spanish traditions, Hector's work interrogates themes of cultural identity, inclusivity, and the power of community storytelling. Through painting, ceramics, and sculptures, he centers the immigrant experience, giving tangible form to marginalized voices that are often overlooked. Beyond his studio practice, Hector is a catalyst for cultural growth in the Gulf South. He is the co-founder and president of the Mississippi Latinx Artist Association and co-owner of Nuestro Arte Gallery in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, where he works to cultivate a dedicated space for Latinx artists and cultural celebration. We did it for Lorena, we do it for Hector, and now we're going to do it for Dr. Michael Vicente Perez, Associate Professor of Anthropology at the University of Memphis. His research has examined issues of displacement, human rights, and religion. Currently, he is working with Dr. Simone Delerme from the University of Mississippi on an oral history project focused on Latinx artists in the South. As a collaborative project with two local partners, Casa Teatro and the Dixon Gallery and Gardens, this research also involves the development of empowerment workshops designed to help aspiring artists promote their work and access resources. Now, un aplauso para todos, and please come on up.
Thank you for that introduction. I forgot what my staff wrote about me, so it's always kind of cool listening to those introductions. And what we call our kids, right, they're the no sabo kids. Any no sabo kids in the house? All right? So no sabo kids, it's like we don't know. We don't know how to speak Spanish, and oftentimes you come into this country, we want to be part of the country. Sometimes it's a negative experience because we are speaking, our language, and we leave our language, we leave our culture. And that's something that my parents made sure that we always appreciate our culture. I'm originally from South America, so I'm an immigrant, and I say I arrived. So I arrived in the United States, in Harlem, El Barrio. Then I went to Brooklyn Tech, so I went to high school in Brooklyn. Then I went to City College, so I, hung out there for about 5 years, Washington Heights. And I lived in the Bronx for a little bit. So I'm a New York girl who married a Mississippian, came down to the Mississippi Delta and spent 20 or so years before heading out to Jackson, Mississippi. And so my story is, it's mixed with the experience of immigration, being a firstborn daughter. I was the interpreter, the translator. I was the cultural broker. And I also had the privilege of being in New York. And oftentimes you don't think that as a privilege, but with the access to resources, language, schooling. I went to one of the best high schools in the nation. Because of that, I got to graduate high school when I was 14 and then do civil engineering. That's public school, right? Things that we don't have here. And when I arrived in Mississippi, in the Delta, I was shocked. And I had never been othered, as I was. And so I also saw the need and all the things that our community needed that weren't culturally competent. I call it culturally humble. There was no language access. I call it language justice. And so we, several women of color, an Indian woman, a Black Puerto Rican woman, Latina, Chicana, started talking about what would it be like to create an organization that's led by us and our children, by immigrants and children of immigrant. And here lies the Immigrant Alliance for Justice and Equity. So the culture is Latino because the leaders, I'm the founder, but we welcome all immigrants. So African immigrants, Indian immigrants, my staff is very diverse, Indian, Vietnamese, Honduran, Brazilian, and we've been in existence as a dream since 2015, officially 2021. So all the work that you see actually wasn't funded for many years. 2021, we got our first funding, and here we are now. So the Immigrant Alliance for Justice and Equity, we've had to change our name, y'all. That's what this administration did to us. So we're Yahe, so that if, they look for equity and justice, they can't find us, So Yahe is our name. We're still doing business as Immigrant Alliance, and we have what we call 3 arms. So we build leaders in the community. And Nuestro Mississippi was inspired as a coalition because what you see there, that exhibit, it's community leaders that feel that Mississippi is theirs, that they belong, and they love Mississippi. So that's a coalition of partners all over the state that support us in the work that we do, whether it's immigrants' rights, labor rights, youth organizing, cultural organizing. PYOMS, Self-Proclaimed Progressive Youth of Mississippi, was founded by young people that were organizing with the children of folks that were detained in 2019. Oftentimes we come in, we respond to adults. What do they need? While the kids are watching in trauma, hurting, and crying. Young people started meeting with them, doing artwork, and now we've had our 5th year. We have a fellowship every year, so I'll share some flyers in case anybody is interested. And then the promotoras. And the promotoras, again, were community leaders, and during COVID, these leaders that were organizing, whose families were sick, who were kicked out of the chicken plants, who weren't paid, were told not to wear masks, they wanted to respond to a community. So we followed the model of organizers, promotoras, and then there's pseudo-community health workers and community organizers that not only learn the skills that community health workers do, but they learn to organize in their communities. And so our mission, we're very grassroots. We work with the impacted community. We go in the communities that need support, and we do issue organizing, again, through an immigrant lens. We're rooted in developing the great leaders of tomorrow. A little bit about Promotora program. We've graduated. We're up to our third cohort of promotoras. We've narrowed it down. We think we've perfected it now. It's a 6-month program. It's weekly. It happens via Zoom or in person. And so sometimes you'll see a mom cooking and learning and asking you to repeat. And it's really interesting the way that these women grow in leadership. It was open to men at first, but eventually, just women responded to the call. So right now we're on our 3rd year, and we've been funded by Kellogg's. Robert Wood Johnson Foundation gave us an award for the work that they did. We got covered by the Clarion Ledger. We were like on the front page, so that was super exciting to see these brown faces on the front page of the Clarion Ledger. There's the progressive youth, young people doing the work. These are the leaders of tomorrow. They are born in Mississippi. They love Mississippi. They're invested in Mississippi. Some of them, actually, I have 3 that are graduating this year. One that's going to law school next year. She is a co-lead with Crystal over there, who's going to med school in 2 years. And so we are not just doing the organizing and the social justice piece, but we're also investing in great leaders. The coalition, again, it's a statewide coalition. Anyone can join our coalition. It's broken into rapid response. It's broken into education. So we have a committee that actually works with principals to see if there's anything that the young people need. And the rapid response is actually the most heartbreaking one. It's exhausting because people are getting detained and there's no legal wins, right? So it's helping people get through the detention, supporting the families, and even actually having those tough conversations if they want to go home in dignity. We want to be able to support them. That's what the coalition does. We do movement through art, which takes us to the exhibit, Nuestro Mississippi. Oftentimes, immigrants in Mississippi feel that they don't have a voice. And we hear, we're going to speak on behalf. No, we don't need anyone to speak on our behalf. All we need is the opportunity to say what we want to say. All we need is a platform. But we are scared, right? We don't know who is going to welcome us. So art is a way that we can express ourselves, whether it's through singing, through painting. That's how I ran into my dear friend Hector. I looked up art and I found him. But it's through art that we're able to resist what's happening now. All the pain that's been caused in our families, all the executive orders that keep coming down, all the legislation. Right now we're fighting some bills that are aiming to hurt our families. So call your representatives and tell them vote no on the anti-immigrant bills. We can show art, and that can unite us. I only have 1 minute. The exhibit, Nuestro Mississippi, was a narrative change dream that happened 2 years ago with our partners, the Mississippi Humanities Council, the Mississippi Museum of Art, where we're showing all the leaders that you see. Every single one of those folks are heroes. They're everyday heroes doing great things in their community. You see the president of the Mississippi Hispanic Association. You see an indigenous woman that brings 20 kids to school every day. She doesn't charge, so people just give her donations. You see the first PTO mom winner in Utica. You see a doctor from Cuba who can't practice here. So that's the faces that we want to show Mississippi. Those are the faces of love to this state, of heroism. Those are the faces that hopefully, right, make it through this administration and remain here to build a beautiful, just, and loving Mississippi for all of us. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hector Boldo, and I'm originally from Mexico City. I've been living here in Harrisburg for about 12 years, actually. I started painting, and I became an artist when I took lessons from a neighbor. I was lucky enough to have a neighbor who was an artist, and she taught me how to paint. She showed me the oil on canvas technique, and then once I finished a painting, she hired me to work for her, and she would pay me with art supplies like oil tubes or brushes or canvases. So I did that for a while, and at the age of 18, I moved to the US with my family. And when I moved here, I started working in different jobs like a dishwasher, a busboy, but I continued to paint, and that really helped me process this migration. Because migrating into a new country, it's a cultural shock. You have to learn the language. It's a struggle. You are always trying to find, community. But anyway, my work today combines ceramics, painting, murals, and also community engagement projects. Okay, so a lot of my work is inspired in my own personal experience, and I also try to highlight, underserved communities and show the beauty of cultural diversity, the resilience of these immigrant communities, and also to show and to represent our community. I noticed that there's not a lot of representation for the Latin community in Mississippi, so I'm trying to slowly change that and leave a mark here in the state. All right, so a few years ago, I worked on this project called Immigrant Stories, and this project was sponsored by the Mississippi Arts Commission. And basically, the goal of this project is to represent and show the stories of these immigrants, right? These are first-generation immigrants that come here to the States. And so the paintings, I want to know what their motivations were behind, what brought them here. And I also want to show their process of being here and, to show the cultural contributions that immigrants bring to the States and also the state of Mississippi. Eventually, these paintings got attention from the Mississippi Department of Archives and History, and they called me and they asked me if they could purchase some of these paintings. And they purchased 4 of them. One of them, in fact, is currently displaying at the 2 museums in Jackson, so you can go check it out. Let's see. I also do murals. I live in Harrisburg, Mississippi. And in Harrisburg, there's this association called the Harrisburg Alliance for Public Art. And they've been working really hard on promoting art and creating murals around Harrisburg, and they've been doing a great job. So this is a utility box that I painted, and it features, these folkloric dancers that are very iconic and of Mexican culture. This is a mural that I did as well, also representing, Mexican culture. You have the sugar skull that represents the Day of the Dead. This is like a celebration painting. You have these women dancing around the sugar skull, but also there's this nopal, the nopal cactus that represents resilience and, how immigrant communities are, they're hard workers and it's kind of like the cactus, very resilient, very harsh, and it survives through anything. These are also some of the other murals that I painted. I like to use a lot of icons that are that I relate to, like a Sacred Heart, for example, or La Virgen de Guadalupe, which is also a very iconic Catholic image in Mexico. And yeah, I also did that Sacred Heart. And so eventually, when I moved to Mississippi, I came from Austin, Texas, and before that from Phoenix. And in those cities, I noticed that there was a lot of art representing Hispanic culture. And when I moved to Mississippi, I didn't see a lot of that here, any of that. I didn't see any representation. So we decided to create the Mississippi Latinx Arts Association. And what we do is we help Latin artists to show their work. We also open a gallery called Nuestro Arte. And we also do, we work with the community, with the local community, and we, try to educate the community to create some empathy towards the Latino community. And we do this by doing workshops, and we also do art exhibits, where we invite all the local artists in the community, and they show their work, and they participate, and they're liking being connected with us. So we've also done different events. We've done a Mardi Gras parade in Harrisburg, which was a great success. We've done that twice. We also, last year, we started the Dia de los Muertos parade in Harrisburg, and we got a grant to do that parade from Sip Culture, which I think it was related to the Andy Warhol Foundation. We were able to get that money to do the parade. People loved it. We created these paper mache puppets, or mojigangas, as we call them. These are huge puppets, and we made them, and we also had a mariachi band leading the parade. People loved it. We're hoping to do that again this year. So we're working on getting the funding to do that again. And we also do workshops, as you can see here with the community. We don't do the same workshop. We try to change them up. We've done cyanotypes workshops. We also have done sugar skulls, plaster sugar skulls, and we give them to people, and then decorate them, and we use them for a show during the Day of the Dead, during the Dia de los Muertos celebration. We've done alebrijes too, and painting workshops. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
All right, thank you. My name is Michael Vicente Perez, and I was told to talk a little bit about myself, so I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to talk more about this project that I've been working on with Dr. Delerme, and I have a video to show you, so hopefully I can keep it all within the short span of time I have. But yeah, so my name is Michael Vicente Perez. The Vicente and the Perez are the giveaways, if anything, that I am of Cuban origin. I was born in Miami, so I consider myself, as many do, café con leche. We're a mix, but we are, my parents are from Cuba, and most of my family comes from Cuba, so I'm the firstborn in the United States. In addition to being an anthropologist, I'm also a musician, and I play with a band that is 2/3 Latino called Adjunct Faculty, and so I'm actually, I'm glad you like that. I did not name it. I won't take credit for the name. My friend, one of the band members, is kind of an adjunct, and I've done my time. So anyways, I'm no longer adjunct, fortunately. Anyways, okay, so yeah, I'm also I consider myself part of the arts scene that actually we're doing this project on, which is focused on Latino artists in the South. I was born in Miami, Florida. I moved to Memphis in 2018. And it's been my first real experience of the South, because even though I was born in the South, I wasn't born in what you typically think of when people talk about the South, because Miami's not really kind of considered the South. I mean, we could debate that, but for the most part, it wasn't. And the one really standout anecdote was, it was always really bizarre to me that my PE teacher in elementary school, Mr. Gonzalez, taught us how to square dance. You know, it didn't make any sense. It still doesn't. I mean, it kind of does now, but it didn't make sense. You know, that was, but so we weren't really, it never really felt like I was in the South. And coming to, you know, Memphis in 2018, I really feel like it's been a discovery and a new experience for me. Okay, so I'm also in another band called Movie Night, but I'm just going to skip over that because I know that time moves really quickly. What I want to do is just sort of give you a feel for the project we're doing, Dr. Delerme and I. And a major aspect of this project is what's called the Southern Latinx Artist Archive. So this is a video archive with interviews and short documentary films hosted by the University of Mississippi. Now, the purpose behind the archive is pretty simple. We want to document the stories of Latinx artists in the communities of Mississippi and Tennessee. And to do so, the archive includes video oral history interviews that capture a few things. So for one, the archive documents the background stories of Latinx artists. So that's where they were born, what their lives were like growing up, and the story of their families. It documents the migration stories of Latinx artists. So what led artists to come to the United States, what that experience was like for them and their families, where their migrations took them in the US, to what regions and to what cities. It also documents the stories of what I'd call their Southern arrival, meaning when they came to the South, what that experience was and has been for them, speaking in terms of culture, economics, and social life, what challenges they've faced, what successes they've experienced. The archive also documents their artistic lives. So when did they begin making art? What inspired them? And what has their life as artists been like, especially as it relates to the South? Finally, and very critically, the archive is meant to capture what kinds of challenges they've faced as Latinx artists in the South and what needs they have as artists trying to establish themselves in the art worlds and economies of their communities. So these interviews, of course, are not the only thing. It's an interview-based archive, but it's not just that. So we're also documenting events, and creating small documentaries around particular artists to try to showcase some of their work and give you a feel for maybe the context of their lives. And what I'm going to do now is show you a video with someone who you'll recognize shortly from the work we did here in Mississippi with Hector Boldo and the community down in Hattiesburg. We have Jacqueline Gonzalez-Wooten and Tom Ramirez Boldo as well, and Tom is also here. And so we went down to Hattiesburg and they graciously welcomed us. We spent some time down there with them, and this is kind of a short video that was produced from our work down there, so you can get a sense of what the archive is trying to do.
You know, we don't see them. Nobody's speaking about it. We're here. You know, where's our stuff? And obviously, there's got to be stuff from other ones.
So we noticed a lack of Latin artists, and we wanted to build a community that supports and promotes Latin art.
So Hector and Tom, for a long time, you know, they also, and I can speak for them, but I think it was also their desire of, you know, being able to integrate, you know, more their culture, you know, and their art. And so they started thinking about let's do an association.
So Latinx, it's because we wanted to be inclusive. We wanted to make it inclusive regardless of gender or sexual preference or any of that. So if you are Latino, that's all we want. Or if you have Latin background, that's all we want to promote and support.
And I think it was the idea of being able to include all, right?
I wanted to celebrate the LGBTQ plus community.
This was very controversial. She's a spirit doll. The Puebla Indians, the little kids, you know, they would make little dolls for the kids to, you know, have as a toy. it's not something that I really wanted to sell. I really did them just because it was a way for me to, tap into my spiritual self.
They wanted me to change the skull because they thought it was too scary for the neighborhood and it was related to death, and so they were against it. And sometimes you have to stay on your ground and say, no, this is a cultural thing. This is how Day of the Dead is supposed to be. I did change to make it less creepy, and since that was a grocery store, I did change the eyes of the skull to be lemon slices, lemon and orange slices, and then the nose is like a watermelon slice. Kind of I wanted to play with the location of the mural, but also I wanted to make everybody happy.
Eclectic, symbolic, thoughtful.
Roots, genuine activism.
So how much time do I have? 2 minutes. So I'll just say there's a good sense of where the project is going, how it's going, what we're trying to do in terms of capturing visually the communities and people that we're working with. I just wanted to mention that this project is also more than the archive. We've been really working hard as anthropologists to do something collaborative. And that means different things in different contexts. But so, for example, in the context of working in Mississippi, we worked with the Mississippi Latinx Arts Association on helping organize and get some funding for some free and open workshops that they ran that were wonderful. And because we want our research to also be beneficial, or our presence and our work to be beneficial in some ways to those who we're asking so much of. But it's also collaborative in the sense that we're partnering with institutions. So in Memphis, we're working with Casa Teatro, and we're working with the Dixon Gallery and Gardens, particularly with Monica Sanchez and Margarita Sandino, who are longtime people who've been working in the Latino community in Memphis, with the arts community in particular. And so we're working with them. They've been involved in the project all along the way in designing sort of the goals. We've hosted 2 workshops so far. It was mentioned that we were doing empowerment workshops, so we've done a couple of workshops, and we have another one coming up. And these are meant to help facilitate opportunities for artists to come together, meet each other, and figure out what they want to organize and do together as community artists, rather than us deciding on that for them. Out of this work, also some sort of informal things have happened which we're watching unfold. So right now there's the process in Memphis of the formation of a taller, a community group of artists that are setting up a kind of artist collective, visual arts in particular, and they're pretty much focused on dealing right now with kind of political things that are going on around the Latino community. And we're happy that came out of the interactions that we helped facilitate in this project with Casa Teatro and the Dixon Gardens. So that's part of what the collaboration means. And we're also creating an artist roster that will include artists from Mississippi and from Tennessee, so that institutions and individuals that are looking for Latin artists can find them. And they'll be there with their art profile, their social media pages, et cetera. And so artists can find each other as well. And hopefully what we're working also is to produce maybe some art exhibits and events ourselves that give a platform for artists to be able to access the public and develop their arts and connect more to institutions. And so I think that's a good time to stop. So, all right, I'd be happy to answer more questions later. Thank you.
Okay, so we have about 15 minutes. I have lots of questions that I'd like to ask the panelists. I'm just going to start with one, though, so I can turn it over to the audience in case there's a lot of questions there. I'm going to start with Laureate. You've been here for some time. There's a question that I always think about. How are Latinos incorporated into social, cultural, and economic life? Over the years, how have you seen, and I keep hearing resilience and harvest, but how have you seen Latinos over the years since you've been here, being incorporated in different ways?
So I got here in 1998. So when I first got here, there weren't many hubs of Latinos, but through the years you've seen them, especially around central Mississippi, which was actually planned. You probably heard about the Hispanic Project through Angela Strauss' book.
Please tell us.
Yeah, so the chicken plants that were first worked on by poor, white, rural community members, then were replaced by Black workers, then were replaced by undocumented workers, and so it's just a new body of people to be abused. So the chicken plants is actually a Hispanic project by the vice president of the Morton Bank, who made a concerted effort to recruit people to work at the chicken plants. When we interviewed him, Marina Hosa came down, and he was like, he would do it again. He was thinking more about the economic development than the abuse that resulted from working at the chicken plants. Pretty much, if everybody were to walk out of those chicken plants, you would not be receiving chicken, you wouldn't have access to chicken. They're the ones who pick the chickens. You got to see like the talent that they have. They pick up 5 chickens with one hand. They pick up the eggs, but they do all the things, so they end up harming their arms. The abuse is they're not allowed to go to their bathroom, so they wear diapers. But I want to say that I don't want to concentrate on, yes, the abuse. Our people are not here to just work. They're not just bodies to be abused and to work. They're here because they want to live a dignified life, and they have been able to do that in certain areas, like in central Mississippi. So you start seeing the Mexican stores. They're beautiful, they're huge. That's where I get my seasoning from, right? Like Valdez. You start seeing the international clubs at the schools. You start seeing students actually want to speak Spanish. There was a Salsa Mississippi for many, many years in Jackson. I don't know if any of y'all ever got to go there. Every Saturday the community went. COVID closed it down, but to their salsa. I mean, it was beautiful. And so I've seen the Latino community grow. I've seen the culture being accepted and being loved. And then the negative narrative, right? So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any audience questions before I continue? Anyone from the audience? I want to make sure I give you enough time. Okay, my next question is for Hector. I think your association, your gallery, is an example that we have thought about in the Memphis context because of what you've been able to accomplish here in Mississippi. Can you tell us a little bit about the challenges you faced along the way as an artist, and how it is you've gotten to this point that so many others as collectives have not been able to? You have brick and mortar.
Right. Well, so one of the challenges as an artist is, sometimes dealing with clients that can be challenging. You have to make the client happy, but you also have to stay true to your vision. So that can be quite challenging, and you have to balance that out. Another challenge would be to balance making a living and staying creative, continuing to sell paintings. I have a job as well. I have a full-time job, and I do art on the side as a side hustle. So that can be quite challenging to make a living out of art, and that's a lot of artists struggle with that, and it's something not easy. But for the association, we started as a space to support Latin artists, but then we realized that there were not a lot of Latin artists in Mississippi, so that was a challenge as well. And that's when we decided to open up the gallery to the local community and do art shows that anyone can participate. And we also started doing those workshops that educate people about Latin culture. During these workshops, we talk about the symbolism behind it, And so it's really that.
Audience, any audience questions? They're a quiet bunch. Michael,
Yes.
one pick up on that question because you're also documenting some of the challenges that artists are facing. You're also seeing resilience, but you're also seeing activism. Can you tell us a little bit more about the challenges and where the activists kind of component is coming in that you see?
Yeah, so as you know, because we're working together on this, we're still in the process. And one thing I can tell you is as far as the challenges and needs of artists go is that they differ depending on the arts that they're working in. I do have some needs I jotted down, but I'll just give you an example so you understand sort of the differences. You know, we were interviewing a Venezuelan musician, and we were talking to his colleague who's also a musician, and he came from Venezuela not that long ago. And he said that one of his challenges was he's a professional sax player who leads an orchestra in Venezuela. In Memphis, you know, he can't get paid what he deserves to be paid because he's not an amateur, he's a professional career musician. And it's very hard for him then to make that into a way of life because in Memphis, the way that the music is received or his abilities are received is that he'll get paid very little and it's not enough to make a living off of. And he believes very highly in the dignity of what he does, and he feels that it's undignifying to sell his craft for such little money. So, you know, that's one example from a musician's perspective of kind of the challenges that can emerge. And he's also speaking about the Latino business community, like playing for Latino businesses, that they don't value the music that he can perform as a professional. But in general, some things that we've sort of looked at and heard about. One is space. We've heard, especially from visual artists, a need for space for making art, for finding in that space opportunities to collaborate and work with others, and just having a kind of social environment in which artists can actually meet each other, interact, and come up with things and share information, etc. So really kind of a social context is needed. As well, resources for understanding and accessing the institutional landscape of the arts worlds. So this means information about things like grants, about residencies, about different projects that are seeking the arts that these artists can fulfill. There's a lack of resources for artists to know where these things, what opportunities there are out there. Of course, language, right? Spanish-speaking artists need access in terms of language, meaning translation of materials for artists to understand what's available and other things. And one thing that I think we're seeing, even though I don't want to rush to a conclusion, but I'll just say one thing it looks like anyways, is that for those Latinos who speak English very fluently, I think they have more opportunities than those who do not. And of course, there are those who don't speak Spanish necessarily and speak indigenous languages as well. So, you know, language is a very important part of this. Time is another one, and I think Hector just kind of pointed to it, right? He's got a full-time job. He can't produce the art as often as he wants to. That's his desire, that's his passion. And so having time to be able to come together and create, or individually to create. And a lot of artists even talked about sort of not seeing themselves as artists because they couldn't dedicate their lives to fulfilling a full artistic life. And so that was one of the things. Two more, and the last one touches on the second core question, as intra-community support. So there was a pretty strong desire among people like especially Monica and others who have been in the community for a while for Latinos to support each other in the artistic things that they're doing. And so that's something that they want to help promote, is find ways for having the Latino community support itself when they're doing arts in the community. The challenge of activism and its response right now is very much around ICE and border patrol and the deportation sort of regime that we're seeing. And so during our workshops, one of the workshops, it was pretty, there were pretty vocal folks about wanting the arts to be dedicated towards doing something in support of the Latino community. This taller that is kind of in motion seems to be one way that there's an activism responding to it by Latino artists, and they had already talked about things like creating artistic works that could be displayed on businesses that says we support the Latino community, Latinos are welcome, or whatever, anti-ICE stuff or whatever. But they're working on that right now. And so that's one of the ways it's happening. But it's a big problem because artists are afraid to even come to public settings because they are afraid to get in their cars and spend too much time on the road because they don't know if they're going to get pulled over. So it's a very, very serious problem.
There's one in the back.
Hi, I was curious, and any of our panelists can ask this about, what you think the role art plays in making social change, and as you develop your practice and work with your practice every day, that's kind of what your practice gives you as an artist in terms of just like what it brings you calm, brings you all these things, but then also, do you feel like your art practice has to be geared towards making social change, and why, if so?
Can I try that? So when we saw, I saw the things that you mentioned, those are things that, being here for 30 years, we noticed. So we actually bought a building, 6,600 square feet, and we're turning it into a space. We've been meeting every week for artists, and what we do is create art as resistance. I think in these times where the Latino community hasn't built what we call as social justice, a culture of resistance, pushing back against the machine, right? You don't see that like you see it in Minnesota or New York and Texas. You don't see that here, that kind of like in Mississippi. I think art is a way to be able to resist, to call out. Oftentimes in other spaces, they feel like they can say, F ICE, not in Mississippi. It's very looked down upon. I think art is a way where people can express themselves freely without really, getting people's feathers too roused up. I think that there's a way that, I think art is, for us especially, we turned our Know Your Rights into cultural connections. So every Thursdays, while we do Know Your Rights, we paint, or someone reads poetry. I write poetry, anti-ICE poetry, I write pro-immigrant poetry, right? So art has a huge, huge place. And just that art of resistance that Hector made, right? Like, I'm going to have my skull there, that's me. So art plays a huge part in resisting, in showing our value, in showing how we feel, and then also in raising our voices against all the hurtful things that people are saying against the Latino community. Does anyone else want to take it?
Yes, I think that every artist has a little bit of activism in them. For me, it's just telling their stories through my art and show some representation that we're here, we're part of this community. And even though a lot of Latino people hide and they don't come out as much, there's a lot of Latinos in Mississippi. And hopefully with my work, they feel more represented and that they belong to this place, to Mississippi.
I think that's a really great and big question, because the relationship between art and politics and activism is a big discussion. Right now, at least speaking as myself, as a Latino musician and working with other Latino artists, for me it's a presence of art is really what's important right now. It can be directly confrontational. Whatever happens is fine with me, but just the sheer fact of being able to see that there are artists that are Latinos and what they're producing, whatever it is, to me is critical at this moment, just because the effects of what's happening is that forced invisibility. And so anything that challenges that invisibility and then asserts a presence of community is really important right now. And so if that's for me, that'd be just the bottom line. And then everything else, maybe Latinos like me who are citizens, we have the ability to do certain things that others can't, and we have to consider that role and that responsibility and what it would mean. But at the end of the day, I just want to see Latinos visible and as part of the community they've been and will always be.
last too much longer. There's certainly a need to educate the non-immigrant community around the advocacy in which they should engage along with immigrant neighbors. And do you have some ideas about activating that kind of advocacy and education in non-immigrant communities so that they're useful and it's not crap?
So that's what we do. That's what we do best. So we're community organizers. Our tool that we carry is the one-on-one, is relational meetings. And so we encourage, when we train people to organize, that's the best tool, is to share your story, connections. All of us have something in common, all of us. There are stories about family, about love, about hurt, about trauma. And so we start by teaching communities to organize the relational meetings. We do a lot of trainings. We actually do trainings on what does, a lot of people don't realize what immigrant means.
Non-immigrant communities so that they're useful and it's not crap.
So that's what we do. That's what we do best. So we're community organizers. Our tool that we carry is the one-on-one, is relational meetings. And so we encourage, when we train people to organize, that's the best tool, is to share your story, connections. All of us have something in common, all of us. There are stories about family, about love, about hurt, about trauma. And so we start by teaching communities to organize the relational meetings. We do a lot of trainings. We actually do trainings on what does, a lot of people don't realize what immigrant means. Like, I am a citizen, but I'm an immigrant. There's residents. I speak at UMMC, the University of Mississippi, and they, half of the doctors that were present didn't realize that the other half were immigrants, the neurologists. There's people that are coming in at student visas that are here legally. So there's a lot of misunderstanding around the nuances of immigration and different types of visas that we have because of that narrative, right? Immigrants and illegal, and that they're weaponizing this word. When really crossing the border is not a crime. It's not in those of you, anybody here in Ole Miss law, it's not an actual crime. It's not is it a misdemeanor? Something like, so it's not an offense that is punishable. Now in Mississippi currently, throw a little bit of advocacy in, they're trying to pass a bill that wants to make it a crime. That means that people have to serve time in jail. So y'all watch those bills as they come by. So there's a lot of information, and I think there's nothing like places like this where we can, be available to answer questions about our culture, about our stories, and then, for you all to ask these questions are super important. So, folks like you that open up these spaces, we go into churches and we have community conversations. We invite pastors, we have faith leaders, and we share our stories. A lot of people don't realize how deep the harm is, how deep the trauma. People are still reeling from 2019, and what happened was the largest rate in the history of the nation happened right here in Mississippi, y'all, right? And so storytelling, trainings, and being able to, make way for sometimes difficult conversations. Realizing that we have more in common than we have differences.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Hector. My question is for everyone who wants to take it, but particularly you might resonate with Lorena and Hector more. But touching on this legacy piece of this talk, so a lot of researchers have found that within folks like immigrated transnationally to Mississippi and the South for many years, but within the last couple of decades, people have started to settle. And that's what we're seeing now, this resonance of Latino, indigenous culture being something that was being tangibly documented and visible and having actual representation across Mississippi. And within this conversation too, particularly now in these times, the settlement has also brought in the birth of blank American children that are U.S. citizens or are protected under different rights legally now, So my question lies in how have you seen within your work how children of immigrants are taking on perhaps a new life to what it means like to be Latinx, Latino in Mississippi, and how that's changing and will forever change Mississippi?
Well, Juan is a Dartmouth alum. He was one of our first interns in Yahe, but he's also, him and his family are featured here in our Western Mississippi exhibit. Yaga Reed's thesis is a work of love dedicated to his father. So much love to this young leader here. I work a lot with young people, and I remember during 19, people were like, come talk to my hijo. Like, my hijo doesn't want to say that he's Mexican. He doesn't want to say that he's from Guatemala. There's fear, but I have seen changes. Like, they know that this is unfair. They know that their families are not these labels. They know the hard work. And I think it's that realization that they're making. I've seen it even in communities. Paula Ramos interestingly wrote this book, Defectors. I don't know if you read it, where they're talking about the Latinos. They're calling us defectors, right? Like we're leaning against our own interests, kind of leaning towards the conservative and leaving our own interests. And that's been a trend that has been happening. But I think this has been an awakening in what's happening in this story that they told us, that they're only going to get criminals and they're taking your neighbors, people that are documented, your friends, your spouses. Like, we're seeing it happen. People over here that they've been deported, that actually had permits to work here, that I've worked hard to get their permits and driver's licenses. They're now, back home in their countries. So I think that stark and harsh realization is making that change. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to be shaken up a little bit. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I am proud to see more young people stand up and, vocally resist or being proud of their heritage.
I think the community definitely feels attacked, and I've personally given painting lessons to young Hispanic kids, and they're afraid for their parents. Like, they tell me, my dad, he drives every day mowing lawns or whatever. They're just afraid of the risk that they're currently on. And to change that, it's hard right now with everything going on. I just hope that people, these changes hopefully very, very soon. And yeah.
Maybe we'll take one last question. One last question.
Thank you very much. I just have a quick question about language. And I'd like to know what your thoughts are related to the use of Spanish as an act of resistance, and also as a way to bring back, like, to use your culture and your language as a way to resist what's happening politically, or if you're seeing kind of the opposite effect, where it's the fear to be heard speaking Spanish that was what that could do, and if you're noticing some type of change in the intergenerational transmission you might have from parents to children, either aligning with the political climate or the opposite, actually bringing Spanish into the household as that source of pride.
So yes, and yes to using Spanish as a form of resistance. I'm the wrong person to ask, because I'm going to, if I get looked at funny, I'm going to speak Spanish, and I'm going to speak French, and I'm going to speak English, and I'm going to go back and forth just to show that I speak 4 languages. Because oftentimes they look at us as less than. They think that and by 5 o'clock, I lose my English, y'all. Like, I start losing, right? Like, I will mix my languages up. But there's this misunderstanding that because we speak Spanish, I want to use this quote of my friend, who is the wife of the photographer. She said, "Don't confuse my joy," right? Because we're señoritas that dance, right? And have red lipstick. Don't confuse my joy for lack of sophistication, right? So they see Spanish as a language that's not as sophisticated as English. What I am seeing is in the indigenous communities is the opposite. They're not speaking their indigenous dialects. And that to me, it's so sad because we have people that are Mayan, right? Like people who are, come from a long lineage from Central America and from South America, and have held on to their culture for so long, and they come here and they lose it. So that saddens me. We have to get interpreters from Boston and fly them in and do all the things. But yes, speaking our language is a sign of resistance. We should be able to hold. I mean, other countries speak 3 or 4 languages, you know, and here we're not allowed to be bilingual. Here we're, you know, and it's maybe not necessarily bilingual, but the Spanish. So yeah, we should very proudly speak Spanish. You know, I correct people when they say Lorena. I say no, my name is Lorena, right? I wanna make sure that it's pronounced in how my mother saw pride in that name. But I am, unfortunately, in the indigenous community, what I've experienced is young people leaving the language and sticking to Spanish, the colonized language. So I don't know if that kind of makes sense.
Good for and there, we're at time, yes.
Wait, can I say something?
Oh, yes, go.
All right, so to my brother here, so we had to close our community center because of ICE and all the things. We're reopening March 28th, and we're gonna have artists there. So we're bringing some Latino artists. They're going to have a art show. We are on Facebook, Yahe, but it's gonna be, you know, a party, so Spanish music, and we'll see what happens. Like literally, we have you know, ice presses in Jackson right now. We want to make sure that we have a lot of security. We're working. That's how we resist, by showing joy. So if you guys want to come by, or know folks that want to come by and experience some joy, please come by. I'll show you.
Everybody, thank you all again for coming out here. As well, just plugging some future events. Please grab a flyer, scan the code. It's going to bring you to a website. John and I are also working on a documentary on Latinos in Mississippi. So if you want your voice to be heard, we'd love to hear your voice. We'll travel to you. I'm also doing some research on Latinos from Mississippi who were born here, looking at the kinds of things Mark was just asking about, intergenerational language transmission, etc. So that's ILRB approved. We have gift cards. If you're interested in that, you can check it out. April 18th, we're going to meet here again. We're going to look at the art exhibits, and we're going to have Frank Estrada. He's going to do some printmaking, bilingual printmaking with us. It's all free. It's open to the public. I'll try to have some food for you again. So please come out with kids. I'd love to have kids, high schoolers kind of make their way here. And then April 19th, we're going to meet at the old Army Pavilion. We're going to just try and have a festival, bring together different Latino communities in northern Mississippi, but everybody's invited. We still don't have a band, so I don't know if anybody's available for that day. I don't know what the adjunct crew, I don't know if they got tenure or what they're up to. But yeah, well, I'm open to suggestions. Like I said, you know, again, I don't know if I mentioned at the beginning, I'd like to thank Stuart Lockhoff and the Mississippi Humanity Council for your, I guess, original support of this project that we see out here. Thank you again. It was a pleasure to kind of get to know Lorena, Hector, and Michael better. Simone Delerme, she was the first person that I think I floated this idea to after I had spoken to Stuart. And I don't know, she's a really positive person. I don't know how much you've spoken to her, so maybe she's always positive, but she was really positive about this. She was like, oh yeah, we got to do that. And again, thank you to Katie, thank you to Afton, and thank you to everybody here. So please go enjoy the artwork and stay in touch with us. And thank you for your interest and the work that you're doing. Thank you.